He beat his stepdaughter with a hammer. Then he stabbed her. Then he killed her husband. And after all of it, he calmly collected their 4 children from school, as if nothing had happened. This is the story of Derek Martin, a 67-year-old grandfather who just flipped. Molescombe, a quiet suburb of Brighton. Rows of modest homes tucked between hedges and hills. The kind of neighborhood where neighbors still nod across fences, where people wave at the postman, where horror feels like something that happens somewhere else. But inside one of these houses, on a calm April morning, that illusion shattered forever. It started as a family argument. Just another small explosion in a house that had been simmering for weeks. Derek Martin, 67 years old, retired, bitter, and broke. Living under the same roof as his stepdaughter, Chloe Bashford, and her husband, Josh. Money was tight. Tensions were high. And pride was the spark. Chloe had been patient. She'd let him stay. But lately, she'd grown tired. Of the comments. The resentment. The sense that Derek, her own stepfather, felt he was owed something. That morning, voices rose. Words turned sharp. A knife fight of syllables and bitterness. And then, something in Derek snapped. He'd later tell police, "I just flipped." He went to the shed. Found a hammer. Heavy. Cold. Familiar. He walked back into the house. Chloe was still speaking, still angry. She didn't see it coming. The first blow struck her head. The sound, a dull, horrifying crack. Then another. And another. She fell to the floor. The world went silent, except for his breathing. Ragged. Animals. The kind of sound you make when you've gone too far to come back. But he wasn't finished. Derek dropped the hammer, walked into the kitchen, pulled open a drawer, and picked up a knife. Then he returned. Chloe lay there, bleeding, half-conscious, trying to crawl. He stabbed her 8 times. Each thrust was more frenzied than the last. When it was over, she wasn't moving. Not breathing. Just gone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Blood pooled under Chloe's body. Derek stood over her. And then, he waited. He knew Josh would be home soon. It was lunchtime. He'd come in like he always did. Kiss his wife. Check on the kids. Grab a sandwich. Routine. Ordinary. Derek sat in the silence and listened. For the sound of a car. For the next life he'd destroy. 11:45 a.m. Josh Bashford, 33 years old, pulled into the driveway. A good man. A father of 4. He'd been saving for a new home. Dreaming of a better life. He opened the door, calling out for Chloe, and stepped straight into a nightmare. He saw her body. Dropped everything. And before he could run, Derek appeared. "Derek, I told you. I told you not to push me." Josh ran. Terror in his throat. But Derek followed, knife in hand. He caught him at the top of the stairs. The struggle was short, violent, desperate. 4 stabs. Each one deeper. Then Derek wrapped a belt around Josh's neck. And pulled. Hard. Until there was nothing left to fight. The house was silent again. 2 lives gone. Blood soaking through carpet and skin. Derek stood in the wreckage of what he'd done, and instead of collapsing, he began to clean. He tried to wipe the hammer, rinse the knife, mop the blood, as if scrubbing could erase the horror. He placed the belt back neatly, straightened the couch, even opened a window. Then he changed his shirt, took one last look at the carnage, and left. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He walked, slowly, deliberately, out of the house, down the street, and toward the school. Because there was still one thing left to do. It was 3 p.m. The children were laughing. Innocent. Oblivious. Derek arrived on time. Smiling. Granddad picking them up. Teachers waved. He waved back. No one could tell that just hours earlier, those same children's parents had been murdered. He bundled them into the car, told them, "Mummy and Daddy are busy," and drove off. Not home. Not to the police. But to McDonald's. He bought them Happy Meals. sat with them in a booth, watched them eat, smiled, talked, acted normally. Inside, the storm was gone. Only a strange calm remained. One of the children asked, "Grandad, when are Mum and Dad coming?" He paused, then said softly, "Soon." After the meal, Derek drove them to their grandmother's house, knocked on the door, dropped them off, said he needed to run an errand. He hugged them each goodbye, and turned back toward his car. The grandmother didn't notice anything strange. He looked tired, maybe quiet, but Derek had always been that way. She didn't know what waited behind Chloe's front door. Evening fell. The streets were emptying, and Derek drove into Brighton city centre. He parked, took a breath, and walked straight into the police station. The desk sergeant looked up. "Officer, evening, sir. Can I help you?" Derek's voice was calm, measured, almost polite. "Derek Martin, I've killed 2 people." The officer blinked, thinking he'd misheard. "Officer, sorry, what did you just say?" Derek repeated, "I've killed 2 people. My daughter and her husband." Within seconds, the station came alive. Officers moved, radios buzzed, and Derek Martin was surrounded. Body cam footage captured everything. The grey-haired man in a jacket, hands still, eyes hollow, no emotion, no tears. He spoke clearly, gave his address, and said again, "They are dead. Both of them. I lost my temper." Police rushed to the scene, blue lights flashing through quiet Brighton streets. Inside the house, they found the hammer, the knife, the blood, and the silence. Chloe was lying in the hallway. Head wounds, multiple stabs. She never stood a chance. Josh was upstairs. 4 stab wounds, a belt tight around his neck. Detectives froze. Even seasoned officers said later they'd never seen anything so cold. One officer whispered to another, "He just went for them. No warning, no mercy." The children's toys were still scattered around. Breakfast dishes in the sink. A half-folded pile of laundry on the couch. A normal family home turned into a crime scene. Back at the station, Derek sat in an interview room. Hands cuffed, eyes blank. He didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't resist, didn't deny. He simply said, "I lost control. I'd had enough. I just flipped." Investigators asked, "Why? What happened?" Derek said there was a row over money, that he'd been told to move out, that they looked down on him. And in that moment, everything inside him broke. He described the hammer, the knife, even the McDonald's meal after. Each word is flat, unfeeling, as if describing someone else's day. When news broke, Brighton froze. Headlines called it the Hammer Killer. A grandfather who killed his own family. Neighbors spoke in disbelief. "Neighbor, he was quiet, polite. I just can't believe it." Another, "She was such a lovely girl, Chloe. She adored those kids." Outside the house, flowers began to pile up. Photos of Chloe and Josh. Notes from friends. A town trying to make sense of senselessness. The children, 4 of them, aged between 3 and 13. They'd lost everything in a single day. One moment they were eating fries with their grandfather. The next, they were told their parents were never coming home. The oldest broke down. The youngest didn't understand. Their lives, forever divided. Before that day, and after. That night, in his cell, Derek Martin slept. Calmly. Like a man whose storm had passed. Officers said he even asked for a cup of tea. He drank it slowly, then went to bed. No remorse, no emotion, just silence. But outside those walls, 2 families grieved. Police prepared their evidence. And the truth of what happened that day was only beginning to unfold. Because what drove Derek Martin to murder was more than anger, more than pride. It was a lifetime of bitterness boiling over, and a family that never saw it coming. 2 people died. A grandfather in custody, and 4 children without parents. The small town of Molescombe had never seen horror like this. And now, detectives were about to piece together how Derek Martin's rage turned into murder. Inside the house, detectives moved methodically. Every wall, every stain, every item of evidence, photographed, logged, sealed. The hammer, blood still clinging to its handle, was found near the hallway. The knife, its blade bent slightly, lay in the kitchen sink. And the carpet, drenched dark red, told the story Derek wouldn't. Forensic detective, the pattern's clear. First blow from behind, multiple strikes to the head, then knife wounds. The male victim tried to flee, stairs, upper landing, strangulation marks consistent with a belt. Forensics clocked every detail. And the brutality was unmistakable. This wasn't a momentary loss of control. It was sustained, calculated, deadly. At Brighton Police Headquarters, Derek Martin sat alone. Wrists cuffed. Expression blank. A cup of cold tea in front of him. When detectives re-entered the room, cameras rolling, he didn't look up. Just muttered, "I told you everything. I just lost it." "Detective, Derek, we need you to start from the beginning. What happened this morning?" "Derek Martin," she started shouting about money again. "Said I was a burden. Said I should move out. I told her not to talk to me like that. I went out to the shed. I saw the hammer. I just snapped." He spoke without emotion, as if reading from a script already rehearsed in his mind. Detectives pressed further. "Detective, did you plan to kill her, Derek?" "Derek Martin, no. No plan. It just happened. Then Josh came home. I panicked." But detectives didn't buy it. They knew what panic looked like. And this wasn't it. Police psychologists reviewed his interview tapes. Their conclusion, chilling. Derek Martin didn't act in blind rage. He acted with controlled intent. He attacked, stopped, switched weapons, then waited for Josh to come home, knowing exactly what he was about to do. And after both were dead, he cleaned, changed clothes, and calmly picked up the kids. It was methodical, almost ritualistic. Psychologist, he demonstrates post-offense organization, cleaning, concealment, maintaining routine. That's not temporary insanity. That's awareness. At Chloe's mother's house, grief hung like fog. Family and friends gathered in disbelief. Photos of Chloe and Josh smiling on the mantelpiece, now framed by flickering candles. One relative whispered through tears, "He killed my baby girl. Then he took her kids for McDonald's." Who does that? For the children, every detail of that day became a fractured memory. Social workers shielded them from the press, but the community could feel their absence everywhere. At the school gates, teachers cried quietly. Parents hugged their own children tighter. The coroner's report confirmed what detectives already feared. Chloe Bashford, 8 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. Multiple skull fractures consistent with blunt force trauma. Defensive wounds on her hands, she'd tried to fight back. Josh Bashford, 4 stab wounds. Ligature marks on the neck. Cause of death, strangulation. Both victims died within minutes. The report painted a picture of a slaughter, brutal, personal, merciless. And every wound screamed the same truth: Derek Martin hadn't flipped. He'd decided. Reporter, police have confirmed the arrest of 67-year-old Derek Martin for the murders of his stepdaughter, Chloe Bashford, and her husband, Josh. Locals describe the family as kind, hardworking, and loving. Tributes continue to pour in outside their home. Outside the house, the street became a shrine. Teddy bears, cards, notes scrawled by strangers, "Fly high, Chloe. Justice for Josh. Love to the kids." The news spread beyond Brighton. Across the UK, people were horrified. How could a grandfather, someone meant to protect, become a killer? And why, after so much bloodshed, did he stop to buy Happy Meals? Inside the lab, digital forensics reconstructed the timeline. CCTV from the neighborhood showed Derek leaving the house mid-morning, calmly locking the door. No rush. No signs of distress. Fingerprint analysis confirmed his prints on both weapons. DNA samples under Chloe's nails, his blood spatter on his clothes matched both victims. There was no question. Derek Martin had killed them both. The only question left was why. Experts built a psychological profile. Derek was a man shaped by bitterness, years of financial struggle, failed relationships, a bruised ego. He resented his stepdaughter's success, felt overshadowed, disrespected, and in his mind, the argument over money wasn't just about bills, it was about power, control, relevance. When Chloe told him to move out, he didn't hear words. He heard rejection, and rejection became rage. Psychologist, for some individuals with fragile pride, being told to leave by family, especially by a younger woman they once helped raise, feels like humiliation. That humiliation can ignite catastrophic violence. Weeks later, detectives re-interviewed Derek. He stuck to his story. No remorse, no sorrow, just repetition. I lost control. I just flipped. But his calm demeanor betrayed him. He'd turned himself in only after ensuring the children were safe. He'd cleaned the house before leaving. That wasn't losing control. That was knowing exactly what he'd done. Months passed. The case went to trial at Brighton law courts. Inside the courtroom, families filled the gallery. Reporters lined the back row. And at the center sat Derek Martin. Grey suit, hands folded, expression blank. Prosecutor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this was not a moment of madness. This was a calculated murder. After beating and stabbing Chloe Bashford, the defendant waited for Josh to return, then killed him too. He cleaned the scene, collected the children, and turned himself in with a chilling calm. This is not loss of control. This is control taken to its darkest form. The defense tried to paint a different picture. They said Derek was a man on the edge, depressed, confused, overwhelmed. His lawyer spoke softly, said Derek loved his family, that he'd simply snapped. But the jury watched the body cam footage, heard his tone, saw his composure, and the truth was undeniable. The footage played across the courtroom screens. Derek walking into the station, cool, controlled, saying, "I've killed 2 people." You could hear a pin drop. One juror wiped away a tear. Another looked down, unable to watch. Even the judge's face darkened. Then came the forensic photos. The hammer, the knife. The hallway was drenched in red. The staircase where Josh took his final breath. The air grew heavy. Every image screamed the same message. This wasn't a sudden outburst. This was murder. After days of testimony, the jury retired to deliberate. 3 hours later, they returned. The courtroom stood still. Derek Martin didn't look up. He stared straight ahead. The clerk read the verdict. "We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder on both counts." Chloe's mother broke down, sobbing into her hands. Josh's brother whispered, "Thank God." Reporters scribbled furiously. Derek. He didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't speak. Just sat there, as if the words belonged to someone else. The judge addressed him directly, voice heavy with controlled fury. "Judge, Mr. Martin, you brutally murdered your stepdaughter and her husband in their own home. You armed yourself with not 1 but 2 weapons. You inflicted unspeakable injuries. You then calmly collected the children, deceived them, and left them orphaned. This was an act of wickedness beyond comprehension. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. You will never be released." And just like that, Derek Martin's fate was sealed. Life in prison. No parole. No sympathy. No escape. He showed no emotion. No apology. He was led away quietly, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Outside the courthouse, the families stood together. Tears, relief, exhaustion. Chloe's mother spoke to reporters through shaking hands. "I lost my daughter and my son-in-law. My grandchildren lost everything. I hope he rots in there." Josh's family echoed the pain. This wasn't just murder, it was betrayal. We trusted him. We let him into our home. The children were placed in the care of relatives. Their names withheld. Their futures are uncertain. But one thing was clear, they would never again call Derek Martin granddad. In prison, Derek Martin adjusted to routine. 6 a.m. wake-ups, meals, lights out. He rarely spoke to anyone. He never asked for visitors, and never once expressed remorse. Prison staff described him as quiet, compliant, emotionless. A man who'd built his own cage long before he entered one. In Brighton, time moved on, but the memory lingered. Each year, neighbors placed flowers at the gate, a reminder that love once lived there, and that one man's rage destroyed it all. A teacher at the children's school said softly, "They were such sweet kids. They still smile, but it's different now. They've seen too much." True crime often asks one question: why? Why would someone do this? How could a man look into the eyes of family and choose violence over love? For Derek Martin, the answer lies somewhere between pride and despair, between anger and ego, between being told no and never learning how to hear it. He didn't just kill 2 people. He killed his family, their future, their trust, and even his own soul. And maybe that's what makes this story so haunting, not the brutality itself, but the ordinary man behind it. A grandfather, a father figure, a man who once laughed with his grandchildren over fries at McDonald's, hours after he'd murdered their parents. A man who sat across from them, smiling, pretending nothing was wrong. And in that smile, the world glimpsed true evil. In Brighton law courts, justice was served. But in the hearts of those children, the sentence will last forever. On screen text, Derek Martin, 67, was sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Chloe and Josh Bashford. He will never be eligible for parole. For children were left behind. They are now being cared for by relatives.